Perfect. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Alicia. Actually, believe it or not, today is my 1-year anniversary at GitLab. So I've been here for a year. Yay, spirit fingers. Been here for a year, part of the social media team with Will as well. And we sit under communications and now integrated marketing with the changes over the last couple months or so. I've been in social media for a long time. I'm one of the old heads, they say, but I started by accident. I was in a traditional comms role when I graduated from college. In fact, I have a journalism degree and went into a traditional comms role at CarMax, which was a smaller company than it is now. It's a huge company, and it's wild to see how it's grown because I was there from like when they were disconnecting from Circuit City. That's how long it's been. And the PR team was like, there's this thing called Twitter. We think we want to get involved. And my coworkers looked around and said, I'm not touching it. And so I was like, oh, I use Twitter for fun. I might as well try it. And I've been here ever since. That was 2009 or 2010. So I'm just looking at the clock. Goodness, 2022. Okay. So it's been a while. I've been here a while. I've done social media, mostly B2B. So I've done retail. I did agency work, which a lot of folks who've been in social media, we all kind of spin the block when it comes to doing agency work. And I was working with a client at the time. Verizon Fios was my client. So I got to jump into the customer service side of social media. And as you can imagine, that is a wild, wild ride doing that. And after that, I went straight into doing B2B social. So I think over the last 5 to 7 years, social media has morphed into this giant ball of activity, right? We've got more social media platforms than we've ever had before. We have more ways of using these platforms. And in some ways, they've been very tricky to navigate for the average person, for businesses, even for children. So you'll see as part of this presentation, I kind of go over some of those things, but I definitely want you guys to sort of talk back to me. I want to understand what your experience is personally with social media and trying to manage that, especially since we've been dealing with the pandemic. I think there's just been an overall increase in how people are using social. And I know even for me, I've been in this business for a long time. I've had to find a way to take breaks and to figure out how to manage this in my work life, but also my personal life. I will say the social media managers, I have friends in this business, we huddled during the pandemic, and a lot of us were seeing some of the wildest things we'd ever seen in our lives on social, in our career lives on social. And we even had to talk amongst ourselves about how to sort of filter out some of the things that we were seeing, because when the pandemic hit, social media was a way we were communicating with customers, we were communicating with employees. So the first few months of the pandemic, I was on social all day long, more than I'd ever been. And so it does take a toll on you, but you also want to stay informed in a lot of ways. And I want you guys at GitLab using social media. So I'm going to talk through some ways that you sort of can manage what you're seeing on social media and curate your feed. Social platforms have come under a lot of flack in the last couple of years about the trolls, about fake information, but that's not going anywhere. So you have to sort of work as the user to try to curate your own experience. Yes, share. Yes, sorry about that. I will do that right now. Let me hit share. And there you go. There, you should have it now. So I will, you're welcome. I will put this in slideshow mode, and then I will share my screen. And I'll be going back and forth even between this presentation as well as the social platforms. I'm going to use GitLab's account as an example. So we talk about managing social media for mental health. If this will click through. Okay. Sorry about that. There we go. Let's talk about the social media channels. I'm only mentioning 3. I know you know that there are way more than these channels, but these are the primary channels still to this day, outside of TikTok, which has an entirely different demographic. So if we talk about what we're looking at as far as Twitter is all about real-time conversations. It moves extremely fast. People are talking about things that are happening at the moment. When we talk about organic social, especially organic Twitter, a lot of that is about driving awareness. You want people to see something right away and react. And so a lot of things you'll see on Twitter are about what's happening in the moment right now. The other thing about Twitter, especially, is that even for us who've been in the business for a long time, you have 3 seconds to get someone's attention on Twitter. And so the content leans toward that 3 seconds for the most part, right? You're going to see some strong words used, sometimes some outlandish statements, because you don't have long to hook that reader. And it's used as a news source. Right now, between Twitter and Facebook, people are sharing, what's going on in the world. When it comes to Twitter, much faster pace. There's a joke about like something lands on Twitter and then Facebook finds out a month later. And a lot of times that's true, right? Especially how Twitter moves so fast. The other thing Twitter has done is add an audio feature. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Clubhouse, and that kind of took over during the pandemic. It was an audio only featured social media platform. People were on their all hours a day with Clubhouse sessions. And so Twitter saw how popular that was and said, oh, let's try and make this work on our platform. The reason why Clubhouse has fizzled out the way it has is because they could never get a handle around the trolling and the abuse. Clubhouse got out of control very quickly, whereas Twitter has the tools in place for the most part to sort of deal with that type of thing. It's also harder to regulate audio only spaces. So Twitter's still still working on what that looks like. We do Twitter spaces here at GitLab. I launched the first Twitter spaces with the DevRel team. We're on our 6th episode coming up. So we've been doing them once a month as an experiment. They've been fantastic. The dev community is like very active on Twitter, especially. And so we've had a nice number of attendees, but you'll see lately Twitter Spaces has taken off. They're getting a lot more active. And those spaces are recorded. There you can add tweets to the conversation as you're in the space, as well as moderators. And then you can block and boot people out as well. Facebook is never going down. Facebook is still the most popular social media platform by active users. So when you look at, Twitter is like the shiny fun kid, and Facebook is the kid that's been on the block for a long time. Twitter right now is struggling to add new users. Facebook has mostly never had that problem. And so it's still very popular, but they're doing the pivot to video. So Facebook and Instagram, you guys know they're together. So a lot of the things you see on Instagram have been slowly coming over to Facebook. And so video has become king. You'll see, more reels on Instagram. You're seeing more live sort of videos. Facebook is chasing TikTok right now. They just published an article a couple of days ago, an insider baseball thing about like how Facebook is freaking out about trying to catch up to a younger generation of TikTok users. And you'll see that Instagram has started to move over to those reels, right? Like 4 or 5 years ago, Instagram was nothing but pictures. Like try to get somebody to watch a video on Instagram, like, yeah, right. But they understand how attractive that is, especially to a younger audience. And they're trying to pull over those folks from TikTok. So Instagram is very influencer heavy. You've probably seen that too, right? Like you've got a lot of people selling products. You can purchase products via Instagram. So it's like a constant barrage of trying to get you to spend money. So that's what Instagram has turned into. And for us social media folks who do this for a living, Facebook and Instagram are great from a paid strategy because there's so many active users and y'all don't post those apps. So it's one of those things of us trying to figure out as people who are in the business how to use it, but also you try to manage it as users. So if we go over to the next slide, social media is overwhelming. I mean, It is literally built to push you to stay on longer and view negativity. And it's funny because yesterday NPR actually published a podcast about this very thing, talking about, it is a very short segment, it's about 12 minutes. And they talked a lot about what the platforms are doing to try to keep us there, but also how they're reacting to some of the criticism they're getting from lawmakers, lobbyists, and even parents saying, you know, this, my kids are seeing these negative images, they're seeing these videos, it's having an impact on their mental well-being. And we've seen a big uptick in that over the last couple of years with the pandemic. You've seen Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress, right, answering questions about how they're using the algorithms in the platform. So if you have a chance to listen to that podcast, I definitely suggest you definitely take a listen, because you're not alone in feeling overwhelmed by everything that you see. Any questions or comments? So I've done personal branding workshops in my past life. I'm looking forward next year to bringing those to GitLab. And what you'll see on this screen and what we'll talk through now are a lot of things that I've run people through in a personal branding workshop that has to do with specifically with social media. Because my job here, of course, is to, advertise our product on social. But one thing I do know is our people, when they share, we get 5 times more eyes and engagements on things that you all share. One of the reasons is because you're human, right? GitLab is a company. This is our company page. I know we're trying to sell something, but that one-on-one connection of, oh, Alicia, you use GitLab and you like it? Tell me more. Or you know how this feature works? Tell me more. So I like to talk through that with employees when it comes to helping us from a marketing standpoint, but this is a great way to make those connections for you. So when we talk about, okay, why am I on social media? Is it for work? Is it for social interactions? Is it for friends? Is it to gather news? Once you start to figure out why am I here, then you can think about the upsides and the downsides. So you've got the ability to create connections with strangers and find like-minded people. I have met Twitter pals that I followed for like 10 years in person. Like we feel like we're friends, like finally getting to see each other in person, making it real. Those are real connections. Those aren't fake, right? Social listening. Social listening is interesting because it's something that I do for GitLab, but it's also something that you can do. So you use the search function. Oh, Beyonce dropped the album. Let me see what people are talking about Beyonce album. Oh, GitLab added a new feature. Let me see what the response is from our wider community about this feature. Maybe we can turn that into a campaign. Maybe there's something we could do differently. So even when you think about how you would use this for work, it's whatever your subject matter is, whatever you're an expert in, searching, seeing what people are talking about in real time. That's the benefit of something like Twitter, where you can get a pulse check in real time versus getting that pulse check in Facebook might not be the same, nor is it the same from Instagram. So you've got those upsides of the creating that connection, social listening. You've got the downsides, which is time consuming. You can open an app, you find yourself scrolling and it's 30 minutes later. And you're like, what happened? But that's on purpose. The algorithms are literally built for you not to turn the app off and to keep it constantly on your phone. The other thing is negative messaging. There's a lot of negativity. There are a lot of trolls on social media accounts. There are a lot of trolls, especially on Twitter, and trying to minimize that. And I'll show you ways that you can do it. You're never going to get rid of all of it because, like I said, these apps are sort of built on this constant feed. And if you listen to that NPR podcast, the guest kind of breaks down how those algorithms work and why. And so you're likely never going to get past the negativity, but you can definitely make it more suitable to your taste. And then pick those platforms and say why. I have a big philosophy, and you don't have to be on all of them. Like, you know, if Twitter is a thing you like and you use, you know how to use it effectively, stay on that. If Facebook is what you like to use and know how to use it, stay there. Like, pick the platform that's most comfortable for you, because some of the feedback I get from people is, I don't know what to say. I'm nervous about, you know, any comments that I might get back, or how I'm going to look or be perceived. Well, if you pick the platform that you're comfortable with, you talk about the subject matters that you have expertise in, you can bring down that anxiety about how the look and feel of that social media channel. So thinking about what's your why, consider the upsides and the downsides, pick your platform, stick to it, and watch your follower count. I mean, this sounds like a no-brainer, but it really is, because the more people you add, and it's easy to do. You're scrolling Twitter, you're like, oh, this person seems cool. You add that. You look up, you've added 10 people. You've only glimpsed at their timeline for 2 seconds. Next thing you know, you're bombarded with all these other things. You're like, how did they get here? Then you're going back and trying to clean up your timeline, right? So starting to think about, like, why am I adding this person? What do they bring of value to my feed? And trying to keep a nice round number of the folks you follow. I have been on Twitter for a long time. I've seen a wave of people who I've followed for 10 plus years completely abandon old Twitter accounts because their follower account got out of control. The type of chatter they got out of control. But if you think about that ahead of time and how you manage, you won't have to delete your entire Twitter account and try to start over, right? You think about curating and keeping that follower count at a manageable number, and the type of people that you want to talk to. Any questions, suggestions? How many of you guys are Twitter users?
I'm a Twitter viewer. I do not provide content, but Twitter's a hot mess in my opinion. And like you were saying, I mean,
so why do you watch and not participate? What's the reason that you watch?
Well, for the big reason that you said was the news. Like, I want to hear, so that's why I was interested in this conversation the most, is the mental health part around it. I watch the news, and then you're always kind of trying to figure out what is the real story, right? So I take a little bit of what Twitter's saying and what different news areas are saying, and then trying to figure out what's actually really happening. So it's kind of like I use it more like People magazine. Right. So I just, when I follow people I don't like, because I just want to hear what they're saying. So it's more of kind of a voyeur kind of thing for me.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stuff I find very offensive, but I read it. I just, kind of one of those things, but I don't spend a lot of time on it. Facebook, okay. You're right. The demographic that I'm in, I am on Facebook a lot, and my daughter, who's almost 20 years old, tells me, oh my God, Mom, I can't believe you're still on that. So I follow her on Instagram, but I am not allowed to be on her Snapchat, which I don't even like Snapchat.
Oh goodness, people are still using Snapchat. Woo. Yes, the demographic for TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram skews very young for the most part. Whereas the rest of us who've been on Twitter 10 plus years, and Facebook longer than that, I think 2003 I got a Facebook. So well, actually no, 2003, because it was my freshman year in college. So yeah, that is, but I like your philosophy, right? Like, you're using it's just one of many, and not one of one. And I think people get tripped up when it's one of one. Anyone else? What's your experience with
I
Twitter?
deleted my Twitter.
Okay, why?
Well, I never interacted with people on it, so I feel like I'm a lot like Christine, where I was just on there like occasionally reading things, but I never really focused on curating like a list of people. I don't know. I am more of an observer. Maybe that's an age thing.
No, that's okay. But that goes back to what I said about social listening, right?
Yeah.
You're searching for things that you care about, or even
Yeah.
work type of things, right? Like
Yeah,
I
I
said,
found that like Twitter wasn't adding anything and I wasn't going to it. I prefer pictures. So I don't go on Instagram a ton, but like that's the one if I do go on to like scroll through things, it's that.
yeah, well,
Facebook,
there's
I
no
would
pictures
love,
on Instagram anymore.
yeah. Well, we'd love for someone to make the groups of Facebook like disassociate from Facebook because that's the only reason why I go back to Facebook is the groups. And I don't know who is going to be capable of doing that because Facebook is so ingrained in society right now.
Yeah, there that well, you know what? It used to be the message boards for us. Like I was blogging at like 14 when I shouldn't have been, right? But back then it was the message boards, right? Like I have met people on those message boards when I was a teenager, like that I know them as an adult. Like we were all MySpace, we didn't even know we were building code. Like somebody reminded me of Angel Fire. I'm like, we were doing all of that, right? Facebook is it's just a massive organization at this point. And you're right, the groups are my favorite things about Facebook. My Peloton groups, like, because you can create, those real sort of connections.
Or even like my local neighborhood, because we have next door. Next door is like another one, but like no one's on that. Everyone's on the Facebook group. So I feel like I can't leave. I want to leave, but I don't. When the
Facebook
power
is the
goes
hard
out,
one.
I can go on Facebook and find out why the power's out.
Yes, and that's what I do too. Because the neighbors, if I look out the window, I know I can go in the Facebook group and somebody's already posted about it. Like it's almost a guarantee.
Yeah, it's hard because I want to like turn off pieces of things, and it's hard to be able to browse what I want on social media and like not see the negatives, like you said.
Well, let's talk about it. I'm going to show you how to create some of those lists. Now, Facebook is the hard one. I will tell you that right away. They have built that machine so that you can't slice and dice as you want to. Mark knows what he's doing when it comes to Facebook. But the pressure has been very hot on him and others to do something, and especially on Instagram. Parents have started to go nuts about their children's use on Instagram. So a few things have happened. You'll see some screenshots from both Twitter and from Instagram. What I would suggest everyone do is once a quarter, browse the settings feature on these apps, because the new stuff that they add, they don't even tell us about, right? It's just buried deep in the weeds. So for example, pausing all your notifications sounds silly, but like it helps. You're not getting that. It's like Slack, right? When you're trying to get something done, what do? You pause the notifications. You can start to, on Instagram, you can pause and mute stories from certain people. And, you get into this thing in your brain saying, well, why is it that I don't want to see such and such stories? Doesn't matter. It's affecting me somehow. Mute them. You can always come back and unmute those folks when you're feeling a different way, or you can never mute them, never, like if you don't want start a conversation about, why did you block me? Or why did you remove me? Mute, and sort of move on. Looking at the following your followers, you can go on Instagram, click the following followers, and see the people that you actually interact with on a normal, regular basis. It tells you who you've talked to recently and who you haven't. Curate your feed that way. These are the people that I actually talk to. You can see that. Instagram doesn't tell you that you could do that. They bury some of those features that can shift your experience. So there's a parent feature on Instagram now for you to watch your children. Probably never heard of that. Again, they bury those features. They say, oh, we provide them.
How can I do that?
Yeah, I'm like, how? Wait, how?
I want to see.
So actually, I should have linked the document. I'll create another slide with all the document links. Instagram is hard for me to show you actively because the desktop experience is horrific. But
I guess the short question for me, and maybe Elsie as well, is that would we have to get into my son's phone, or the access to Instagram, would I have to have control of that subscription?
So there are apps that you can purchase.
Okay. Of course, there's an app.
There are apps. So some of this is controversial, right?
Well, he's under 18, so in my opinion, it's not.
And that's perfectly fine. Like I said, when I say controversial, I have no children and no stake in this at all. But I have advised even my friends about how to work through their challenges. Because right now, in fact, there's an incident that's going on where what they call stanning, if you've heard that term, where we have folks who are very passionate about an artist or two, and they will sit online all day long harassing people about these artists. My friend actually just filed a lawsuit this morning for someone who was harassing her over a famous person. The person is a minor, she finds out.
Yeah.
And now she's got to go to her parents and tell her they're being sued and possibly has a felony charge because their daughter leaked my friend's address and phone number all over Twitter because she said something negative about a pop star that she liked. When you don't know that your child has that Twitter account set up, you've opened up that possibility. So there are apps that you can purchase in order to monitor. You can if you look on Instagram, you will have to connect those accounts though. You will have to have that information. And once your child knows you're watching, that helps as well. You can also, and I'm going to go show you this on the next couple slides. You can minimize the topics that you see on Twitter. What Twitter doesn't tell you is that they're taking all the data from all of your scrolling and they're putting together an algorithm just for you. And they're showing you particular topics and people. You can actually X out of that. You can turn that off, but they don't tell you. You can turn that off. So if you open up your Twitter feed, you'll see something that'll come up. It'll say topics. You're like, I'm not even following this person. Why am I getting this topic? Because Twitter's automatically showing you those topics based on all the data they've received from you over the years of using it. And it's automatic. And so you have to turn it off. Right. So the permission that they get to show you things is when you sign up. You have to opt out of everything after that. And it's kind of like that opting, these new features of opting in and opting out, these are new because of pressure, because these did not exist before. For the last couple of years, they've come out under a lot of steam about it. I think I have some questions.
So do you have some advice, and maybe you're going to talk about this a little bit later, you're briefly touching on, how parental controls and things of that nature, but what about some of the discussions about, helping your children or even yourself understand that everything you're seeing is not necessarily real, right? Creating those false narratives for children and even grown-ups thinking, oh, everybody's life is better than mine. Or everybody's at the party, I'm not, those types of things. So, do you have any resources or advice on how to help our children with that?
So that goes back to curating that timeline and what you want to see. Like, it sounds so simple, but it is hard, right? Because you go in and you just start adding people, but like, why am I adding this person? Or maybe I just need to like the post or save the post to come back and see it later. I don't need to follow that person to see what they're doing, right? Like,
right.
And again, the way you feel about that, the anxiety that kids and grown people have, it's on purpose, right? Like, it's intentional because they want to keep you and they want to continue to do these things. What Mark and teams have said is that it's not their fault. This is a dual relationship. It's the user and it's us. And so they've started to put things in place. So for example, if you've noticed lately, Twitter has that feature where if you click on a link, or you retweet something without reading the article, it'll ask you, do you want to read this article? Okay. New feature, just came less than a year ago. They haven't really talked about that feature, but that's one that they've instituted because of all the false information. So what's happening now, it's in layers. I wish I had a clean answer for this because I don't, because TikTok is becoming that place right now. People are believing every single thing they see on TikTok, and a lot of that stuff is made up so they can get views on those products. So it is literally about you thinking, do I need to follow this person? What is this person? adding to me. And maybe I just
How are
need
they
to
making
mute.
me feel? Yeah, how are they
How are
making
they
me feel?
making me feel? And it's okay if they're making you feel crappy. I mean, it's life, right? Like
Yeah.
every moment isn't perfect. And I think sometimes we feel like, well, I should be strong enough to be able to watch and see this. And no, I'm not strong enough to do that. Like I have a bunch of people muted right now for my own mental health. Because I still need to watch for my personal life, but also my professional life. So I mute people all the time. I create groups all the time. Sometimes I only tweet from my list.
Ah.
I don't even look at the rest of my timeline. So that's what we're talking about here is if you open up Twitter, let's look at GitLab's list. You can create your own list of people to watch and talk to. I'll open up the app, I'll go straight to my list. I won't even hit my timeline because I only want to see everyone who's using the everyone can contribute hashtag. That's it. That's all I want to see. And so that's a way to just stay off the timeline. Use your timeline, say to yourself, I'll check my timeline once a week, but I'll check these every single day. As you know, Twitter's going to want you to stay there. So they're going to tell you about new lists that you can follow as well. Another new feature on Twitter, this literally just launched the last 6 months, communities. This is like Facebook groups for Twitter. So you can add to a community, discover communities that you might not be part of that they think you would, because again, they're scrubbing all their data so they know what you're looking at all the time. So using these features and bypassing your timeline, easy win, right? That is something that you have distinct control over. So my suggestion is curate those lists that are outside of your typical timeline. The same thing kids can do, curate lists to talk to their friends. Oh, I still want to keep in touch with my friends. Okay, make a list called friends, tweet from there and leave everything else. So you've got that option. Twitter circles. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I can't pull it up on the desktop, but Twitter circles allows you to tweet only to a certain group of people now. So you can decide to make your tweet public, or you can decide to only make it for your Twitter circles. It's just like Instagram stories or close friends, right? So that's another way to sort of bypass, or even if you want to have conversation about a particular thing, that it not hit your entire timeline or all of Twitter. Facebook is the tough one. The few things that I've done is organize my friends lists. If I'm going to post something, only certain people see those posts. Facebook is the beast. Mark is not trying to let us slice and dice that app at all. And I think it's going to be the trickiest one for a long time. Twitter is willing to have some bend to it, but organizing your friends list in those groups are helpful. The same thing with Instagram. They have that close friends feature. Organize that close friends feature if you want to post something, especially from a story perspective. Limiting the views to certain people, because you open yourself up, especially on Instagram, to get a lot of chatter from the outside. I just talked a little bit about those settings. Turn off your notifications, like literally like take 5 minutes and very quickly run through those settings on Twitter and Instagram. I think did I screenshot I can't really see. You can even go in so far as to, oops. I don't know why I'm having so much time with this. The ads preferences on Twitter. So you're getting bombarded with all these ads. You can manage the frequency and the types of ads that you see on Twitter. Now, that gives me anxiety as someone in social who's done paid social, and I want you to see all of my ads, but you do have the option to limit the ads, the types of ads that you're seeing. So really taking time to explore those settings, making sure those are the things that you want. Even this data sharing with business partners, I would suggest everyone look at that, because we sign up for these apps, we agree to share some of our data, but we can opt out of a lot of that data sharing with a couple clicks of the button. And almost every social media platform has the option for you to do that. But again, it's buried pretty low. Block versus mute. I talked about that a little bit already. Like mute, if you feel uncomfortable with blocking somebody, just mute them. Perfectly acceptable. Adjust the type of data, turning off your notifications. Manage your time. Instagram now has a daily limit feature. You set how much time you want to spend every day on the app. And once you've hit that limit, it tells you to get off. Mine is an hour. I have an hour a day on my personal Instagram feed. Once that hour clicks up, I'm done. I move on. Technology and people who've been in the social media world are starting to develop software now. There is a friend of a friend is working on an app called the Block Party. And that app is going to allow folks to block people in bulk, but also control the number of the trolls that might come in. So it's a very new app and very new feature, but it has a lot of potential. They're raising a lot of funds right now in order to sort of bring it to life. The other thing is use your phone. I don't know how many people are Apple users, but this last update, even on Monday, allows you to have these focus apps as well. And so like I set a focus time I work out from 7 to 8:15. Only certain apps are allowed to pop up. Only certain people can call me and only certain messages are going to come through. Only certain Slacks will come through from 7 a.m. to 8:15 every single day. I have my focus set up. And it used to be that you could not segment them, but the new iOS update has allowed you to segment them. Let me make sure I have any questions. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah, I see Christine had to leave. Any questions about those things? So the head versus heart thing is what we talked a little bit about earlier, which is soaking in so much of that negativity has an impact. As long as you're willing to admit it has an impact. Some people want to say, I should be able to do these things, but knowing that it has an impact is like that first step to doing it. And then putting these things in place, the lists, the circles, really taking the time to look at all of the features within your settings, adding those daily limits, using your phone for focus time, using another app for focus time. So I have the Brain FM app that I use sort of to help me focus and get me away from picking up my phone constantly all the time. I will set my phone in another room so that I'm not running to like grab it, and set notifications on other devices for particular things that I do want to see. Because a lot of times we have everything we need on our laptop anyway. If someone is trying to reach me, they can find a way. So it's about being creative, knowing what you want to use that particular platform, being willing to admit that this stuff does impact you, and then trying to stay on top of the changes to the apps, because the things that will enhance your experience, unfortunately, they don't tell us about all the time. Any other questions, concerns? Favorite group is Beware. Okay, garbage truck is coming. Okay, oh, that's cool. Yeah, like Facebook, the groups have been so helpful. It's my timeline that drives me crazy most times. And these are people that I know. So I usually head over to groups for the most part when I'm perusing Facebook. Great. So if there aren't any other questions, if you have feedback, I've joked for so long that I was going to start a company teaching parents how to manage social media with their kids.